All right, welcome in, Sons of UCF Live. This is really confusing. First of all, Trace not here, Leo not here. It's a Wednesday, and then this smiling gentleman across the screen for me is back after a couple of months sabbatical. UCF Mike, officially Florida Panther Mike, apparently, is back with us. Mike, we've missed you, my friend. What is up? How are you doing? How are you feeling? The Panthers aren't on right now, by the way, but I appreciate the gear you have behind you.
It's great to be back on the Sons of Kachuk podcast. I missed you guys. I'm ready to discuss the forecheck and all the things that go along with this first round of the Eastern Conference Finals. Panthers, Hurricanes. I know you guys are all pumped up for that too, right?
Did you not get the show rundown of that? None of that's actually included in tonight's episode because the Heat are on in like 35 minutes. So I'm going to need you to carry the show like around 8:40. If you can just kind of step in and take care of everything from there, that'd be fantastic. Because my Heatles game 1 in Boston, so I'm going to need you to really step up, Mike, around 8:40.
No problem. I can break down the lines of what we're going to go do up in game 1. How we're going to do line by line, the Panthers lineup, and all that stuff. I'm ready. I'm prepared to carry the show for the last 20 minutes.
Oddly, when I thought you were going to break down lines, I had something completely different in mind, Mike, but let's transition off of that. We got a couple of news and notes headlines off the top. We got a cool guest already in the green room, and Mike decided just to leave the show, which is fantastic because without Mike, it's just me talking to everybody on here, and that's not exactly what you all signed up for. So UCF Mike actually not back. This was not part of the drill tonight, so I'll wait for Mike to come back in. But news today, EA Sports announcing our favorite video game is coming back, maybe. And this time, if it comes back, it's going to have the actual names of the players, Mike. You can opt in and have your name. It's an NIL situation. I know we were huge college football video game guys back in high school, Mike. They're bringing it back. Name, image, likeness will play a factor. You can opt in and get money. You can opt out and be replaced with a generic character. Mike, do you like EA Sports now including the names of players and those guys getting paid for their work?
I love that stuff, right? And for years, people would come up with programs to put the names in where you'd have to create the characters yourself of the players you wanted. Now these guys are going to be in the game already and they're going to get paid for it. It's a win-win situation. Why would you opt out of it if you were a player? And how much are they going to get paid? I mean, it can't be a lot, but at least it's something.
I love when you ask questions I cannot answer. I have no idea what the payment scale will look like. Why would you opt out? Great question. Maybe you think you can get more money elsewhere, or that sort of inhibits your rights in some way, shape, or form. I wonder if like the top players in college football, whenever this game comes out, I think it's slated for 24 or 25 at this point. So who knows who the top players will be, but maybe they think they can get their own licensing deal or something, or they're not going to get as much money as they're worth. Who knows, Mike, but it's a cool idea. It's a cool endeavor. It would be even better if they let you pick, like, so I saw this on Twitter, so I don't know who did this. So I don't want to steal their idea. I saw somebody on Twitter say, if they let you pick your cover athlete and essentially send you the game, if you pick John Rice Plumlee, he's on the cover. Plumlee, everyone can make a killing off that, Mike. Some creative ideas potentially from this game, if you ask me.
Yeah, but then the video game people would have to pay more people more money. I don't think that's happening. But do you even buy the CDs anymore? I don't know. I don't have the PlayStations anymore, but don't you just basically download these games off the internet? Do you even need the disc anymore?
I'm really glad we're skewing younger, Mike, when you ask me how to play video games. I think both are an option. Yes, you can download, but I think you can also buy the CDs. Devin wants to know, will JRP have 99 speed?
Well, I don't know about 99. I think the only people they ever gave 99s to were like Deion Sanders or maybe one of the Barber brothers, Tiki Barber, maybe had it or something.
Tiki Barber wasn't a 99.
I know he wasn't a 99.
Get out of here.
I'm telling you,
Barber wasn't a 99. I need someone in research look that up. There's no way a Barber brother was 99. There's no way.
I'm telling you, they were ranked high in those games.
You're not telling me. You're not telling me. I'm not believing that. There's no way that's a possibility at all, Mike.
The last time I played one of those games, I believe it was like the 13 season. We had Blake Bortles and Godfrey, but they haven't had that game, I don't think, in almost 10 years. So.
Leo live on location from Italy chiming in. He doesn't own a single disc for his PS5, so that just shows you how old you and I, Mike, are. Speaking of old, your favorite coach, congratulations, Johnny Dawkins, elected to the College Basketball Hall of Fame, Mike. Our college basketball head coach is a Hall of Famer. Your thoughts?
It has to be for his coaching, right? Because he hasn't played a college basketball game in 40 years. So it's not like, he's added to anything on his resume there. So it must be the job that he's done coaching here at UCF finally put him over the hump, got him into the College Basketball Hall of Fame. Now, This is the College Basketball Hall of Fame or just the Basketball Hall of Fame?
The National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame.
Because just the Basketball Hall of Fame, is he already in that? Because
I don't believe so.
He's not like George O'Leary. He's not in a lot of Hall of Fames.
I can't confirm or deny.
Because that Hall of Fame, I think, lets everybody in.
Yes. Yes, the Basketball Hall of Fame lets everybody in. Maybe it's the Stanford NIU championships. I mean, back-to-back NIT years. That's a great point, Leo. Devin wants the Johnny Dawkins statue out in front of Addition Financial Arena. I mean, he was a really good college basketball player. Mike, to your point, it's been about 35 years since he's played, but he's legendarily been considered one of the guys who essentially got Coach K in that first class to come in and help to bring the Duke dynasty to where it is today. So maybe it's his playing days. They're righting some wrongs. Maybe Coach K lobbied hard on his behalf. Who knows? But our head basketball coach, Mike, is a Hall of Famer, which is pretty cool. This next story, maybe this guy will be a Hall of Famer one day. We'll see where that happens. At Taylor Hendricks, widely positioned to be a top 10 pick in the NBA draft. We had the draft lottery last night, Mike. We now know the top 10 picks. San Antonio obviously will take Wembanyama with the number 1 pick. Scoot Harrison probably number 2. But 3 through 10 or 11 potentially Taylor Hendricks land, Mike. I know you've had a chance to study the top 10 in depth. What's your projection? Where is Taylor Hendricks going to get drafted on June 22nd?
I believe the Orlando Magic have the 8th pick in the draft?
That's the 6th pick. Yep.
6th. Okay. That's where he's going. He's staying right here in town, Orlando, hometown favorite, hometown hero. They'd be dumb not to take him. So I believe that's where he's going to end up. And I think it'd be a perfect fit for the Magic.
Magic have 6 and 11, Mike. So if he falls, they actually have 11, or they can move back up. I think he's somewhere in that 5 to 8, 9 range. So Detroit, Orlando, Indiana, Washington. I think he's somewhere in that ballpark. But it'll be pretty cool to see a UCF guy hopefully walk across the stage on NBA draft night. I don't think you and I have ever experienced that in our UCF fandom lifetime. I don't think Jermaine Taylor walked across the stage as a top 10 pick or even as a pick at all. So this could be a first for UCF basketball, which is pretty cool.
Was Taylor a second rounder? Maybe. I think he was drafted, I believe.
He was correct. I think he was second round.
But they only do the suit and shake hands with the commissioner if you're in the first round.
I think it's the same thing with the NFL. Like, you're not going to go hang out in the green room if you're not going to be one of those top 10 picks. So I suspect that if you're not top 10, you're probably not hanging out.
All right. Well, something exciting to look forward to. Only a couple weeks away. Hope for the best. What's the best situation for him, do you think, to get the most playing time, make the biggest impact right away?
Well, you want playing time or you want to win? I mean, playing time, all these teams are bad, right? So you'd think he'd have an opportunity to play in a lot of these teams. Houston, Detroit, Orlando, I don't know how much playing time he would get. They got a really good young core. I mean, they made a lot of noise. They were potentially in some of that playoff stuff. They really only got the extra pick because of the Chicago Bulls and the trade they had with Vucevic. So Indiana, he gets some playing time. If he goes 3 to Portland, 3 is high. Portland's a darn good team. Damian Lillard, obviously, is a perennial all-star. I think there's talk that Portland may trade that pick, so maybe he doesn't get there. But I think he can get a significant number of playing time. If he gets to 10 at Dallas, again, Luka, I don't know if Kyrie comes back. I don't know if you want Kyrie back, by the way, for Dallas, but Luka's there. You know, they got some young guys there. That could be an interesting spot for him as well. But any of these top, I mean, Indiana, Utah at 9, actually. Utah had a pretty good year, too. So I pretty much named every team, by the way.
No chance he slips and gets down to like the Heat or something like that, huh?
Anything's possible, man. I mean, you know how these draft things work. If he has a bad couple of workouts, they find a hangnail. I mean, anything's possible at the draft, but it's hard to say. Staying basketball really quickly, UCF had 3 guys in the portal, and then 1 leaves. Joey Hart, a freshman incoming recruit, has asked to be released from his national letter of intent. UCF has honored that intent. So just when we thought things were looking up, Mike, we lose a high school kid. Gives Johnny one more scholarship to find somebody in the portal. Obviously, sounds like Joey Hart's got some stuff he's working with in his family situation. So we wish Joey the best of luck as he moves on. Mike, let's go football for a second. Your friend Gus Malzahn, like, making the media rounds. He was out and about. He was at the Charge On tour in Atlanta. Saw Barrett Salih had a favorable article about UCF. I actually fainted as I read that headline, which was rare. But Gus made some rounds this week. Like, he was on the Coach Me Up podcast with Jimmy Dykes. And I want to read this quote for you as I bring in our next guest. week in and week out, the Big 12 is a grind. There are no off dates. You got to bring your lunch every day. You've got to win close games. That's the biggest challenge, Mike. So obviously winning close games will help UCF. And I've been following this guy on Twitter for a long time, and it's very apparent he's way smarter than I am. And so he does a lot of stuff with projections and graphs, and he had some stuff out about UCF recently, and I'm dying to hear his perspective on how UCF is going to do this year. So let's bring in our friend Kelly Ford, who you can find on Twitter at KFordRatings. Kelly, thanks for so much for joining us here on the Suns UCF Live.
No, absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on. That was some great talk there for the first 10 minutes. I was learning a lot all about, South Florida sports and everything. So I don't get much into that. It's all college football for me, but that was really fun. I appreciate you guys having me.
You never know what you're going to get around here, Kelly. So before we get to all your charts and graphs, I got them. I'll pull up on screen for a second. Take me through your process. Like, you put together these pretty in-depth charts. What's your research look like? How do you kind of come up with some of the numbers and the model that you use to put together your analysis?
Yeah, for sure. So when I started out, I basically learned everything I could about Bill Connolly's SP Plus, or at the time S&P Plus, and Brian Fremeau's FEI. And so those are kind of the two godfathers for me in college football predictive analytics. So I learned as much as I could about what they were doing, and eventually set out to kind of chart my own path and see if I could put some numbers out there for everyone to consume. So my process is very similar to Bill's. As I'm building my preseason numbers, I'm looking at three main inputs. It's returning production, which UCF actually grades out pretty well, at least relative to the Big 12 and relative to Power 5 teams. So that's really going to help UCF's preseason power rating in my system. It is your recent recruiting. So how well have you recruited over the course of the last four classes, devaluing the weight the farther back we go. And then what are your recent K-Ford ratings? So the last 4 years of your program's power rating at the end of the year, again, de-weighting as we go farther back. That's really what makes up the preseason power rating. And then once we get going into the season, I de-weight the preseason aspect. And of course, it gets replaced with in-season data. So in a nutshell, that's what I do on the power rating side. I'm then able to take the power ratings and have them serve as the engine for my most deserving resume rankings. So it's a way for me to basically evaluate every single team and put into context what they've accomplished relative to what the average top 25 team would be expected to accomplish against that team's schedule. So power ratings, resume rankings are the two main things that I'm doing in the college football space.
All right, here is your chart. Here's what you created for UCF. So give me the highlight. If I'm a UCF fan, what number on this chart here should I be most excited about? I assume the green is good, but give me the number that when you put this together, that as a UCF fan, we should be most excited about.
Yeah, green is good, red is bad, yellow is hard for playing an opponent, and blue is easier. So the number that I think UCF fans should be most excited about, again, I'm an outsider looking into the program. UCF's making the jump into the Big 12, into the Power 5. I'd be excited right in the top right there overall, looking at 7.5 wins on average is what my numbers are projecting for UCF, which is the best of any of the 4 new members of the Big 12. And really, it's right there in line with a lot of Power 5 programs. And so to me, that's what I'd be excited about. You could also get excited at the 52%. So my numbers say there's a 52% of 8+ regular season wins this year for UCF. So a 50-50 chance you're going to get to 8. Again, first year in the Big 12, first year in the Power 5. I think that's a really, really good sign. And then another number you can get excited about maybe down in the bottom right, all those different difficulty measures. What those numbers are representing is how difficult would it be for the average top 25 team to reach each of those record thresholds, 6-6, 8-4, 10-2, 12-0, against your schedule. So you can see UCF's difficulty strength ranges anywhere from 41 to 51. That means it's the average top 25 team would have the 51st most difficult time going undefeated against UCF schedule. That's above average in FBS, but that's obviously below average in the Power 5. So when you're looking at it in totality, UCF's schedule is actually not as difficult as maybe some other Power 5 programs out there. And looking within the Big 12 specifically, UCF only has the 11th most difficult schedule by my numbers out of the 14 Big 12 schools. That's largely driven to the fact that UCF is able to avoid Texas, who my numbers have power rated very highly coming into this year during the Big 12 portion of the schedule.
How many years have you been making these charts? And just give us an example. Last year, how accurate were you?
Yeah. So this is This is the first year that I've publicly put out a graphic like this. I really like it. I'm doing it for all 133 FBS teams this year. And it'll be nice for me to have to reference going back. But you can see in the bottom left what my 2022 expectations were for every single team. Of course, this is the UCF one. So UCF won 9 regular season games last year. That is 0.2 more than my preseason realistic expectations had for the Knights last year. I was projecting 8.8. So we're UC 7.5 this year. There was 8.8 there last year. Again, that's a function of playing in the American versus playing in the Big 12. And that 0.2 positive number there grades out 50. So 0.2 more wins than expected. That was 57th best in the entire country last year. So right around average, as you'd expect, that number being close to 0. But I put that out there for every single one of the FBS teams that played FBS last year. So all 131 from last year. I was within a half game or a game of the actual for the large majority of the FBS teams last year, which makes me feel really good about my numbers and my predictive ability to try to hit the over under on a season win total for any given team. There were some teams though that I whiffed on. I think my biggest overachiever was TCU. TCU obviously went 12-0. I had predicted somewhere around 6.5 wins for them, so that was a massive overachievement last year. My biggest underachiever last year, most people want to say it was Texas A&M. It actually wasn't. My numbers were a little bit lower on Texas A&M than most. I was projecting around 8 wins for the Aggies, which I caught a lot of grief for coming into last year because Aggie fans were telling me that was crazy. Well, it turns out they only got 5, I believe it was, in the regular season. So that -3 was the biggest underachiever. Sorry, it was one of the biggest underachievers. It was actually Miami, though. That was the biggest underachiever, the Hurricanes, out of any team last year. I missed them by, 3.5 games the wrong way. So there are going to be those outliers. I feel good that my outliers are typically the outliers that Vegas has as well. So my projected wins are usually right around the Vegas over-under, which, again, gives me a little bit of validity as I'm fact-checking my own model.
You mentioned Texas already. You have big expectations for them, and Oklahoma are your top 2 picks in the Big 12. How much of that is based on reputation? How much of it is based on last year? I mean, last year Texas went 6-3. Oklahoma went 3-6 in this same conference.
Yeah, so I get that question a lot. It's not based at all on reputation. I say that and people don't believe me, but it's not. I talked about what the 3 inputs are for my preseason numbers. And again, those values will change as we get going through the season and replace it with in-season data. But looking at the talent roster of Texas and Oklahoma, basically how well have they recruited, their power ratings each of the last 4 years. Texas especially has underachieved relative to expectations, but from a power rating standpoint, they've still been highly regarded in my model as well as many other models out there that do power ratings for college football. So when you put all of those together and then you make the relative the comparison point of the Big 12 teams, the teams they're competing against in the conference, that's how you get to where these numbers are. Now, there's not a huge gap, I mean, to be honest, between Oklahoma and maybe those next couple teams down there, but there is a little bit. I mean, you got 1.2 games, but projected average wins between Oklahoma at number 2 and TCU at 3. But if you look at the percent chance to reach each of those individual thresholds in conference play, you can see that those numbers are not very far off. And so, again, this is just a starting point for evaluating teams. This is not by any means the end all be all. I never suggest that it is, but it definitely is. It gives folks kind of a high level view of a team from the numbers perspective.
All right, getting back to UCF for a second. If I look at your chart correctly, you basically have 3 games that you're giving UCF a pretty tough chance of winning: at Kansas State, at Oklahoma, at Texas Tech. Right? So is that correct based on your projections? Those are 3 games that the model is basically telling you UCF does not have a great chance to win.
Yeah, and those are the 3. I would say Oklahoma for sure. My numbers right now projecting a 10.5-point underdog on the road in Norman. Now you're coming off a bye, so my numbers don't necessarily see that. That's a scheduling dynamic that's not captured by the model, but that could definitely benefit UCF in that spot in Week 8. But 22% chance to win that game. That's definitely the most difficult one there. Even at Kansas State and at Texas Tech, you're looking at a 37 and a 40% chance respectively to win. I mean, that's not unheard of. You can easily pull those off. Now, on the flip side of that, you could maybe lose a couple games that my numbers have UCF as smaller favorites in. I'm looking at Baylor. I'm looking at Cincinnati. I'm looking at Oklahoma State. But yes, that is correct. Right now, my numbers only see 3 games on the schedule where UCF, based on the information we have right now, would potentially be underdogs. So I think that bodes very well for a team making the transition into the Big 12.
Yeah, I want to stay on Cincinnati for a second. Obviously, that's a road game for UCF. So, A, how much does that factor in road and home? And B, does your model factor in coaching changes? Obviously, Cincinnati with a new head coach this year. I know you talked about returning players. Do coaching changes, scheme changes? Is there any way for you to factor that kind of stuff into your model?
Yeah. So the first question, home, road, and neutral is absolutely accounted for. I have a home field advantage that I apply to every single game that's played. I'm playing around with the idea of assigning different home field weights based on venue, because playing a game, for example, at Bryant-Denny is maybe not the same as playing a game at Miami of Ohio. So that's maybe in a future version of the model, but right now there's a standard home field that gets applied to that. And then the second question, how much do coaching changes and scheme changes play into my model? The shorter answer is they don't. The longer answer is they do kind of, but I don't have a dedicated input into the model that accounts for that. Again, that's another area that I'd like to improve on the model moving forward. Cincinnati, though, returning one of the lowest amounts of returning production from last year's team coming into this year. So while Cincinnati's been a very good team, especially in recent years under Luke Fickell, not only is he gone and met with the coaching staff, but much of the production that they've had to have a lot of success in the American recently is also no longer on the roster.
Looking at the whole conference again, I see you have TCU, Kansas State, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, UCF, and Baylor pretty much all bunched in with about the same % chance to win 6 games. Which, in your opinion, before the season, who has the best shot of maybe making it to Dallas for a championship game?
Yeah, outside of Texas and Oklahoma, those got to be the 2 favorites. But outside of those 2, you hit the nail on the head, Mike. They are all very similar. I do like TCU and the confidence and experience that they have from last year. The same could be said for Kansas State, obviously having won the Big 12 last year against TCU in Dallas. So it's hard to go against either of those 2 out of the group you just named. I know they're also listed as 3 and 4, but you said it. I would not be surprised at all in the order of 3 really through 8 or 9 even. I mean, you could get all the way down to Cincinnati before you're thinking that there's another maybe drop off in the numbers. So it's all going to come down to close games, as it does in college football every single year and in every single conference. Can you win those close games? Can you win those games that you're projected to have a toss up? As I look at UCF's schedule, again, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 games projected within 4 points or less, right? If you can go 4-0 in those games, I really like your chances to overachieve. If you go 0-4, you're probably not going to be very happy with the season. The reality is you'll probably end up somewhere in between.
A team like Kansas made a big improvement last year. I think they won 5 games. Looked like they're getting things going, but I'm looking here on the chart. They're all the way back at the bottom. What do you see about Kansas that you don't like this year?
Yeah, Kansas was a great story last year. We talked about the overachievers, TCU. Kansas was another one, especially early on in the year as they're rattling off all those wins. I was rooting for them to get bowl eligible. I was certainly glad that they did. But Kansas, again, when the preseason numbers are looking at your returning production, your recent recruiting, and your recent K-Ford ratings. While Kansas had a great year last year, that was really the first year in a long time that they'd had a good, power rating in my rating set. And looking at the returning production being below Power 5 average, below FBS average, the preseason numbers just aren't favorable for Kansas. I'm not able to capture, though, some of those intangible things in and around that program that seemingly they had all in alignment last year and were able to kind of be pulling in the right direction. If they're able to do that again this year, they certainly could overachieve expectations. But Kansas is a team that last year really overachieved. My numbers are accounting for that this year. Probably expecting a little bit of regression back to their historical mean, but certainly that they've got a quarterback in place and an offense in place where they can do some damage. I don't think they're going to catch anyone off guard like they did last year, so that probably hurts them a little bit. But I have them as a top 5 offense in the Big 12, and so anything's possible when you can score points.
Kelly, our friend of the show, Dolly Drama, big fan of your data. He has a question I want to throw to you for a second. What's your background education, and how did you get interested in stuff like this?
Yeah, no, I appreciate Dolly. That account has been great to interact with recently, so I appreciate that. My background in education, my undergrad is in mechanical engineering. I no longer work as a design engineer, though. I went to grad school and was able to make a transition into college athletics, actually. So I am actually an assistant commissioner for competition and basketball strategies is my official title, kind of a mouthful, at the Horizon League, which is a Division I conference in Indianapolis, probably most notable for Butler when they were going to the Final Four back in 2010, 2011. Butler was a member of the Horizon League at that time. Of course, they no longer are, but that's what I do for full time. The ratings are just a hobby, but I've really enjoyed digging into them, and who knows what they could potentially lead to one day.
All right, so your numbers are great, man. You're really smart. You got a lot of cool graphs, but you really caught my attention for this. This has to be one of the best setups I've seen in anybody's house. You've got 5 solid TVs. Wires look really, really well hidden. Good levels, good sight lines here. Walk us through this process, man. And how did you get this thing greenlit? In I assume that's your basement. Is that a man cave? Where's this at?
It is in the basement. It's actually right over there from where I'm sitting right now on the other side of the computer. But this 5 TV setup is something. So going way back to my undergrad days, I lived in a fraternity. I used to pull TVs from all over the house, everybody's room. I'd get I'd get cable splitters, I'd get cables, I'd get boxes, all that stuff, and put them into my room for college football Saturdays. At the end of the day, I'd return them all. And I said, one day I'm going to do this where I don't have to bring the TVs out every single time. So my wife and I, we have this house, and this was before we had a couple young children. Now we finished the basement. I'm glad we did it when we did, because I don't know if it get greenlit now. But we didn't have any kids at the time. She said, "Hey, you can do this wall that you've always wanted to do," or whatever. So my wife's a saint. She's a hero. She signed off on it. We were able to make it happen. And so, yes, this is my college football Saturday setup. I absolutely love it. It's also great for March Madness, as you can imagine. But the wife signed off pre-kids, and I'm very thankful for that every day.
Heady play on your part. How do you decide what goes on what TV? What's the strategy around what gets the big TV, what gets top left, bottom right? How do you decide that?
Yeah, for sure. So the main TV is always going to be what the game that I'm projecting to be the quote best game. And I use my ratings to help me figure out, what am I going to watch? What am I going to care about? So that's what goes on the main TV. And then the other 4 TVs they're all the same size. I typically put my number 2 game in the top right, number 3 game top left, number 4 bottom right, and number 5 bottom left. That's just kind of my internal process for what I'm doing. But I definitely use my ratings. What is the overall quality of the game? So what's the average K-Ford rating of the 2 teams playing? And then how competitive is the game going to be? What's the differential between the 2 K-Ford ratings once you account for home field advantage? That helps me decide which games to put on. There have been a time or two where I'm sitting there in a 3:30 Eastern window, and I'm like, dang, I wish I had a 6th one. But more times than not, the 5 TVs get me through, and I really enjoy it.
Do you do this with everything in life? Like, do you do this with your wife's dinners? I suggest you don't. Your chicken parm is ranked like a 72, but your soup is down a little bit this week.
No, I keep it to college football. I know better than to get into those numbers. Everything my wife makes and everything she does, fantastic. And just in case she sees this, I got to make sure I put that out there. But no, she really is great. She's an amazing wife. She's an amazing mom. All those things, best friend, all that stuff. But no, just the college football ratings. I'm actually going to get into college basketball ratings. I've been doing a little bit of playing around with that, but I am going to start publishing those for the 23-24 season. So that's something that I'm excited about. And you all should be very excited about joining the Big 12, of course, on the men's side. One of, if not the most competitive conferences in all of college basketball. I love the Big 12, especially men's basketball. It's great. And so I'm excited to power rate those teams.
I don't know if we're looking forward to those rankings with our team coming in next season.
That's a good point. That's a good point. It's a tough league, but a good platform for you guys for sure.
Well, going back to that picture real quick, what is that trophy? Did you win the American Football Conference? What is that trophy down there on the bottom right?
Yeah, so that actually, speaking of March Madness, that is our extended family March Madness trophy. And so I went up I don't remember what trophy website, tried to find one that kind of looked like the NCAA championship trophy, basketball trophy. So that's what we came up with. We've been doing it for, as I look, 6 or 7 years now. I have a model, I have an algorithm that I use to complete my bracket. Probably not surprising based on the work I do with college football.
Shocking, yeah.
I've won it once. I set the record for most points ever in the pool. We do kind of a seed bonus, so it's a little bit different than just a straight scoring. So I won it 1 year. I've been runner-up like 4 times, which you don't get on the trophy for runner-up. And then I've had a couple dud showings as well. But I'm definitely aiming to get back on that trophy here before too long.
Okay, we appreciate you hopping in and sharing more about your analysis. You're a great follow on Twitter if you're not following him at K-Ford Ratings. Again, he said every team, he's got a new graph out there every couple of days. He's got conference graphs out there. So for those of us jonesing for some football, nothing better than to dive in. It's never too early to go game by game and figure out win-loss. It's a time-honored tradition in college sports. Kelly Ford, thanks for making us smarter, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show soon. I
appreciate it, Adam. Thank you so much, Mike. Great meeting you, and look forward to staying in touch with you guys.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Kelly. All right, so Kelly clearly smarter than you and I, Mike. But the TVs, that's an impressive feat right there.
That's a nice setup. I mean, you go to the den for a setup like that. You want to watch multiple games at once. On my house, I only have one TV, and then I gotta go to the phone for a second one, or maybe an iPad or something. But that's an impressive one he's got there. 5 TVs.
Well, speaking of impressive, Mike, UCF softball is pretty impressive. They win the American Conference Tournament. They are now heading to Tallahassee to face South Carolina in the regional, Mike. That's on Friday at 7 p.m. And I found this interesting. Coach Bear was at the press conference after the announcement. And obviously, softball had a really interesting season. I think they started a little slow with a tough schedule with a new team coming together. And I thought Coach Bear had some interesting comments when she talked about this season, what they've been through, and kind of what it's meant to her.
Yeah, it's just fun. It's been a fun journey. There's been some tough moments. There's been some moments of like questioning myself even, but that's what makes it so special is getting through those moments and being able to say, all right, the trophy's right there.
And so the trophy gets to stay with UCF our last time in the American, Mike. And for the first time ever in the Sons of UCF, we have a twinning situation, Mike. Let's bring in our friend Eric Lopez.
All right.
It's just looks. Do you guys plan this out? Like, what happened here?
Well, in honor of Mike being back, I had to wear my Jaromir Jagr Florida Panther jersey. All right, Mike. Now I do have my Miami Heat 2013 championship hat. Right? We're getting ready, literally, to tip off against the Boston Celtics, and then obviously I have my American Conference UCF softball championship ring, which I'll be adding one more at least going into next season. But yeah, this is a fun time. I'm just happy, thankfully, with Turner and ESPN working together, that the Panthers and the Heat now finally can play different nights instead of at the same time. That's been annoying.
So far, all of our guests have championships of some sort. You and I got to step our game up. And Eric, obviously UCF with a championship, winning the American Conference championship, last time in the conference, obviously. In your mind, what's the importance of UCF winning the AAC title here in their last year? How important was that for this team?
I think it was critical on many levels. Number one, I don't think outside of if they lose to Memphis in the quarterfinal or in the semis to South Florida, I'm not sure they make the NCAA tournament. The way the week played out, where all the upsets, what's going around in conference tournaments elsewhere, I'm not sure if they would have made it or not. It would have been tight. So, it made it less stressful. But I think it was a historic moment. Think about it. It's in Tampa, Florida. It's the final time for the American. You go through USF one more time. You eliminate them in their park, and you celebrate the championship in their field. I think that's from an historical moment. That was very significant. And keep that momentum from last year, with all that buzz coming into this season. And you played the clip with Coach Paul Malone, who admitted that, yeah, they had some early struggles. They had 6 walk-off losses. They were 19-18 at one point, and it didn't look great. And this team stuck together. They've won 20 of their last 21. They're playing their best softball, and they're in another region on their 10th NCAA tournament, the most that any UCF sports team has, making the NCAA tournament since 2005. So to go out on top in a league where they won the first year, they won the regular season title, and in their final year, they win the conference tournament, and really have been the premier program for the American when it comes to softball. So it's one that I will never forget. It's probably the most exciting, emotional, dramatic tournament run that I've been a part of since I've been the broadcaster at UCF since 2007.
Well, you've watched every game this team has played this year. You just said this. What changed in these last 21 games? What switch was flipped? What changed that kind of had the second half of the season take off for the softball team?
Pitching. It starts with Sarah Willis, who started the year as a two-way player, was working her innings up, and head coach Cindy Malone had a sit down with her and said, look, we need to focus more on the pitching. We're going to not play you as much as far as offensively, at least for a while. And she has been electric. She won the American Conference Pitcher of the Year award. She threw the perfect game against Houston, the first 7-inning perfect game in program history, first perfect game in 20 years. She wins 3 games in the conference tournament, first UCF pitcher to win 3 games in a single elimination tournament since Allison Kime, the UCF Athletic Hall of Famer in 2008 did. So it starts with that. Pitching has been the key for this team. I believe during this run, in these 21 games, 19 of them they've given up at 2 runs or less. So it starts there. And then you have timely hitting. Kennedy Searcy moving up to the leadoff spot. They're 21-1 this year with her in the leadoff spot. That's been a nice bright spot. And it's just all coming together. Much better defense behind Willis. Grace Jewell was solid through a no-hitter against Arizona State. But it really is this young pitching that we had so many questions about that grew up in the second half of the year.
Well, Sarah Willis is the hottest pitcher going right now, maybe in all of college softball. What's the strategy with her this weekend? She's going to start the first game. How many games can she pitch? Is there an innings limit? What do you think Malone's going to do?
I don't think there's definitely not an innings limit. I mean, I wasn't expecting her to throw all 3 games in the conference tournament, and she did, and she was effective. I expect her to get the ball against South Carolina opening night. That's a marquee matchup, by the way. Friday night, ESPN2, 7 o'clock at night. I was told by somebody, I was on the phone now with someone that works at ESPN. They were telling me this is one of the marquee regionals in Tallahassee. And so I think it'll start there, but you're going to need other pitchers. It's a double elimination format. I think you're going to need other pitchers. I think you'll see Grace Jewell pitch some. I think you're going to see the rest of that staff pitch this weekend if they want to win this regional. Sarah can't carry the load and pitch every single game in a regional unless you stay in the winner's bracket, which would mean a win on Friday against South Carolina. You would assume Florida State will take care of Marist. You play that winner's bracket game on Saturday, then you play on Sunday. That's the only way, in theory, she could play every game. But again, against the teams like FSU and South Carolina, you're going to have to give them different looks. So I expect Grace Jewell to get some innings, Caitlin Felton to get some innings, Angelina DeVoe to get some innings. I think those are the 4 pitchers you're going to see at some point this week.
Jada Cody, her numbers are a little bit down this year. I know she had a historic season last year, but what's been the difference? Have teams approached her differently and pitching her a little differently this seation?
Absolutely. They have kind of stopped pitching. They don't pitch to her as aggressive as they did a year ago. They've pitched around her, and that's given opportunities to freshman Aubrey Evans, who's hit behind Cody. So teams, I've seen it in conference that they'll intentionally walk Cody, and hey, let's see if the freshman can beat us. That's why Chloe Evans has had a monster year at the cleanup spot as well. And it's been an adjustment for Jada. Jada had a lot of high expectations for herself, a lot of eyes on her. And she had a bit of an injury during the season, which wasn't 100%. Teams weren't pitching. That's an adjustment for her. But don't miss to be fooled by the numbers. She still had a really strong year defensively. She's a weapon at third base and catching, her base running, and patience being. She's still among the leaders in runs scored. So while she's not having the home runs and the RBIs that she did last year, she's still producing and helping this team win in so many ways. They were not the same team without her. So and I think last year, prior to last year, she wasn't really one that, hit for a ton of 15 homers and drove in 60. That wasn't really who she was. I think that's one of those things that it just kind of was a magical year and it happened. But I think she still had a strong year, and I think she's ready to go for this regional coming up here in Tallahassee.
Eric, you talked about Sarah Willis, talked about Chloe Evans. One of the other newcomers, Jazz Williams, had a really big double play for UCF and the tournament, obviously. How big has she been, and how important has her leadership been for this Knights team?
It's been huge. She's been maybe the best defensive shortstop I've seen in a handful of years at short. With some of the double plays she's turned. Offensively, had a great week at Memphis, hit the big home run in the bottom of the 6th against Memphis to take the lead. Had 2 home runs in that tournament. I think if it wasn't for Sarah Willis, Jasmine Williams would have been the team MVP of the conference tournament. And she's been that quiet leader. MLB.com did a great feature on her. For those that don't know her story, she's a mom who's also a wife. Going to school, and she still has a year left of eligibility. She's already said she'll be back, and she's been a nice rock solid leader there in the infield, because that was a big question going into the year. They moved Michaela Macario to second, who was the starting shortstop last year. You're like, well, is that a great idea or not? Yeah, no, it's been great. Jazz has been fantastic at short. It's one of the best defensive shortstop years I've seen, and Macario's been fantastic at second, and that's been a part of that second base, defense, protect the queen. That's been their motto. Be playing great defense behind their pitchers. They've been on fire defensively over the last month, and Jazz Williams is a big part of that.
Eric, who's somebody in this team? Who's a name maybe most fans aren't thinking about or following closely that you think has to really kind of step up and have a big weekend for the Knights to advance?
It's going to sound weird to say this, but it's going to be, I think, Carson Fryer in particular. Why? Not because of her bat, but because behind the plate. Florida State in particular, if they play FSU, even a Marist, to some extent South Carolina, they all like to run in the base paths. I think Carson Fryer, who had a big defensive play, stealing bases against South Florida, shut down their running game. She has to be solid behind the plate. She's really had a good month. Funny story about her. Her father played on the FSU national championship team in football in '99. Her uncle was on the 93 national title team at FSU, so there's going to be a lot of family members there. Her cousin was Steve Pierce, who was the World Series MVP for the Red Sox in 18. So she has a lot of family pedigree. I think she's a key factor defensively this week. And I'll give you another name that I think is going to be a key factor. And again, it goes back to Aubrey Evans, because I think teams are going to pitch away from Cody and Chloe Evans. And I think Aubrey Evans, who had a great conference tournament, even though people have known her now, the freshman from Apopka, she has to have a big, I think, regional for this offense to click, because they're not going to have a ton of opportunities. This is a premium type of a regional when it comes to pitching. With FSU, with Catherine Sandercock, South Carolina with Goburn, who's a hot name now, been good for South Carolina. So I think those are a couple of names to keep in mind. And then a Savannah Adams or Katie Burge off the bench. They got to produce offensively off the bench when they're called and their numbers called, whether it be pinch hitting or pinch running. I think those are two other names that maybe people aren't, the casual fans, not familiar with, that I think could play a key role this weekend.
Last year was Maddie Bejarano with the big clutch hits. Who's the one that's clutch on this team? Is it Shannon Doherty still?
It's been her, but I think Chloe Evans. I mean, think of South Florida. UCF beat South Florida 4 times. Chloe Evans had the 3 game-winning RBIs in those wins in 3 of the 4 games. She has hit the walk-off homer against Boise State at 12:30 a.m. Over the night, the longest I've ever stayed at the Plex. She's been the stud to transfer from Minnesota. She's been a rock-solid clutch player who's a player that you want at the plate with the game on the line at cleanup spot. And Shannon's been hitting behind her. It's been a really good 4-5 mix there offensively. So I think that's the name to watch, but certainly Shannon Doherty has the pedigree to be as clutch as anybody. And you're right, Mike, that's a key factor in this region. You got to have timely hitting. And I think Chloe and Shannon have to be solid regionals where their opportunities come and their numbers called. So, and think about this. Chloe Evans, transfer from Minnesota. Sarah Willis, transfer from Washington. Jasmine Williams, transfer of Oregon. Cindy Beaumont nailed all 3 transfers. Look back to last year. Kamal Woodall from ECU. There's not a better UCF coach. I dare you guys to argue with me. Who's a better UCF coach on campus right now as far as identifying talent in the transfer portal and hitting it and having massive impact to their teams than Coach Paul Malone when you consider the players he's brought in from the portal?
Forget the portal. Just overall, I think she's the best coach on campus. And I don't even know if it's close right now.
I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, she's got a top 17 recruiting class coming in this fall to add to this team going to the Big 12 with this roster, which, by the way, everybody on this roster is eligible to come back next year. Everybody, except Elise Volpe, who's done. Everybody else is eligible. Now, whether everybody comes back or not, who knows in today's landscape of college athletics, who knows? But you look at this core, you know, they've got a chance. With one more win in this regional, they'll win 40-plus games for the 3rd year in a row, which has never happened in the program's history. And I think, and I've said this, I think them and women's soccer might be in position to compete right away in the Big 12 versus the other sports. Not saying there won't be an adjustment, and certainly the disadvantage that softball has next year is that Oklahoma is still in it. So that might mean that we don't get one of these per se next year. But I think they're going to be in the mix, and I think moving forward after Oklahoma and Texas leaves, I think UCF's going to be a factor with the Big 12. So, yeah, Coach Paul Malone's done a great job building his program, but they're looking to make some noise this year in this regional. You hope that experience from last year could help them here in Tallahassee.
You saw our last guest with all his percentages. What percent do you give us to come out of this thing and make it to a super regional?
Ooh, mathematics here. I would say, well, considering they're a 3 seed, this might sound low, but I actually think it's pretty high. I think it's 35, 40%. When you consider they're a 3 seed. Look, Florida State's legit. I mean, they're a 3 seed for a reason. I think they're a national title contender. If you tell me who's the biggest threat to Oklahoma this year, it might be Florida State. They have great depth pitching-wise. They have great speed, good balance offense. But I think UCF, certainly with the experience from last year from the hitters, they could push Florida State here. And this is if you're a World Cup soccer fan, you know this, and maybe Leo is. By the way, where is Leo? Did he go? Did I hear that right? Did he go to Italy? Is that how bad the Knicks loss stung to him, Adam? That he just had to leave the country?
Yeah, him and Julius Randle. I got right out of Dodge.
Well, there you go. We'll never see them again there. Leo doing all the smack talk. But I think that's going to be a Drupa Death type of regional in Tallahassee. I think it's the toughest regional in the regionals. And for UCF, it's going to be a stacked regional, and I think 35% is very reasonable considering they're a 3 seed overall. They are a big threat. If you look at all the 3 seeds across the country, UCF is probably the best 3 seed. So I would say 35%. I think it'll be pretty dramatic. Should be interesting atmosphere in Tallahassee.
Either are you heading up there, or can we catch you in the call anywhere? What's your situation?
I haven't figured all that out. I mean, this is a crazy week. I got the Heat right now playing the Celtics as I'm talking to you, Adam, which is props to you for being focused.
I'm not watching 16-15 Boston early on. Go ahead.
we got the Panthers against the Hurricanes tomorrow. Are we beating the Hurricanes here, Mike? Should I be confident or concerned?
I'm confident, man. This team just feels like after that Boston series, the way down 3-1 and the way they won those last 3 games, down to the last minute in game 7, it just feels like one of those teams of destiny. You know, when your team's going to run, like my Giants did a couple times, and as an underdog, an 8 seed, it feels different, man. It feels good. I'm confident coming into the series.
I don't blame
you. On the road.
That's right. They have been really good on the road. Although I don't think home ice in hockey matters, but that's another story. I'm with you. So I got the Panthers on third. So now I got the UCF regional, the Panthers, and the Heat. That's a lot for me to keep up with. So I haven't decided yet if I'm going to be in Tallahassee in person or if I'm going to call it. Maybe I do a watch along if you guys are interested.
Oh,
maybe
okay.
I don't know. I got to figure out. I got to need multiple sets to follow between Heat, Panthers, and UCF. It's a good problem to have, but it is unique nonetheless.
You got to go to that guy Kelly Ford's house. He's got 5 TVs.
Kelly Ford's available if you need. I don't know where he lives.
That's true. That's who I need to hook up. I need a friend there that he can hook me up with some monitors there.
All right, Elo, I'm always stuck listening to Mike and Leo with New York talk. So finally, someone I can talk South Florida sports with. I'm going to get Mike involved, though, because I know he's a big Panthers fan. Last week was a pretty cool event. You've been around actual South Florida sports for a long time. Having the Heat and Panthers, both as 8 seeds, clinch on the same night. How cool was that, man, as a South Florida sports fan, to see that go down?
It's one of the best nights. And, let's add to the fact that earlier that day, UCF beat South Florida in softball. So for me, it was like trifecta. I mean, that was pretty much a lot of fun. But you're right. The Heat to take out the Knicks, be the second 8 seed to get to a conference final since the 99 Knicks. So I feel in a way, Adam, that this is payback for 99.
That's an asterisk, though. Strike short in season. That's an asterisk.
There you go. But I'm just saying, we stuck that over the Knicks. And then the Panthers in overtime, it was like 16 minutes later after the Heat beat the Knicks, the Panthers scored the overtime goal to take out the Maple Leafs, and all the Canadians kind of crying about another year without a Stanley Cup. That was pretty awesome. A pretty awesome moment with the 2 franchises, the 8 seeds, getting to the Final Four, if you will. That's going to be one that it will be remembered for a long time. And it's just that you're right. That Friday night was pretty awesome.
All right, we'll get you out of here with one final question. If you can only pick one of those 2 teams, Heat or Panthers, to advance to the finals, like you can only have one, Eric. Either Heat go in the NBA Finals or the Panthers go to the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. What do you got?
Oh, jeez. Oh, that's a tough question there, because I know Mike wants the cup. Adam, you want the NBA Finals title. Right?
I want to hold the LOB. I want LOB. Mike wants Stanley. Yep.
Oh, I kind of going to side with Mike and the cup, only because the Panthers have never won a cup, right? The Heat have won 3 titles. I feel like we're playing, and I feel like we're hypocrites, Adam, because 3 weeks ago or a month ago, you, me, JP were declaring this franchise to blow up this roster. Let's go for Taylor
Hendricks.
For
Wembanyama. Wembanyama at that point,
Like, I remember we're watching them get blitzed by the Hawks, and we're like, this team's done. You're like, this team can't relate to playing modern basketball. So we look like fools.
Old takes exposed. Yeah.
At least the Panthers, it's the hockey you expected. Everybody knew they matched up with the Bruins. Poor Mike's got what do you got? Season tickets, Mike? You're going to get?
No.
How do you get to go?
I just picked up tickets that day, and I already have tickets secured if I want them for Game 6 in this series.
Ooh.
I'm hoping it doesn't get that far. I'd like to save some money and go to the games in the finals, because those seats are not cheap, and the beers. Oh my god!
I've been to the Stanley Cup playoffs. They jack it up a little bit there. So I'd like to see the Panthers. I'll see the Panthers because, like I said, the Heat have won titles. I've seen the Marlins win the World Series. Let's balance it out. Let's give the Panthers the Stanley Cup and really keep, bring the Stanley Cup to the Sunshine State down in South Florida. I'm okay with that. I mean, now, look, if the Heat end up winning it and the Panthers don't, then I'm not going to lose sleep over
it. At least you get something. But yeah, I mean, I need to see the cup. I've told the story on the show a couple of times. I jinxed the Panthers in '96 when I touched the cup myself. I wasn't supposed to do that.
Why did you do that?
Because it was in front. It was right next to me. When am I ever going to touch the Stanley Cup ever again? So I touched it, and we haven't won the cup since, or ever.
Well, in fairness, the Avalanche was a way better team that year. Joe Sakic.
Yeah, and Patrick Wall. We couldn't score on him.
That was a blowout for sure. Elo, nobody better for UCF softball. If you're going to do something, please let us know. We'll let the audience know to join you on Friday, Saturday, over the weekend. I know everyone loves hearing your calls at UCF softball. So Dan Cundiff, big fan of yours. He's looking to get involved too. So if you're doing something, let us know, man. But thanks for always giving us some softball knowledge and all things UCF and sports related, Eric. You're the best.
No problem. Check me out at Eric Lopez. I'll keep you posted, and always a pleasure talking to you both, gentlemen. And the best of luck with our respective franchises, if you will.
Eric Lopez, the best in the business, buddy. We'll see you. Nobody's smart about softball, Mike. I mean, he makes me feel smart about softball when I listen to him talk. I mean, he just knows so much about UCF softball. And we're really fortunate to have some really smart folks around covering our sports, Mike. Let's do a quick around the kingdom. Then we got mailbags here. Baseball. Mike, they beat Bethune, our final weekend series, Wichita State this weekend. Mike, we're in a weird spot at baseball. We're currently the 4 seed right now, right? We're only 2 back of the team in front of us, which is Wichita, but we are only 1 ahead of Cincy and 2 ahead of Memphis. So this is a really interesting weekend for UCF in terms of seeding for the conference tournament. Mike, what is going to happen? How do you feel about baseball? Where are you at right now, my friend?
I don't know how I feel about this team. And one day they look good, one day they look like complete crap. But this is a huge weekend. If seeding, depending on this, I mean, you don't want to go in and face the top teams in the conference the first round. That's something you definitely want to avoid. You want to be somewhere in the middle of the pack. Give yourself a chance to maybe get on the good side of the bracket and give yourself a best chance of advancing, because that's our only chance to make it to a regional, is if somehow we pull off a miracle in the conference tournament.
And if you want to go to that game, send me or Trace a DM. We have tickets for the game on the 19th and 20th, club seats, courtesy of our friend John Morning. So send Trace, Mike, or I, one of us a DM. Tell us you want the tickets. And if you're nice to us and you're the first one, you just might get those tickets, Mike. We're just hanging banners around here. Track and Field wins the AAC Indoor Championship, Mike. I know you were celebrating, I assume, yes?
Of course. I was glued to my iPad screen for that one.
Are you able yet to name the head track and field coach?
Dana Boone. Come on. Everybody knows that.
Look at you. And Mike, it is big. Volleyball and women's soccer. Big 12 schedules have been released. Mike, it's starting to feel real that we finally have schedules. And maybe a fun trivia fact for those listening. I think, if I have all this right, the first ever UCF conference game in any sport will be women's soccer. We play them, I think, September 14th will be the first ever game. West Virginia, UCF women's soccer, September 14th. That should be the first ever UCF Big 12 contest. So there's your answer to a trivia question I'm sure we will ask at some point in our lives.
We're about 40 to 43 days away from officially on July 1st being in the Big 12. It's been a long time coming. I'm excited for it. I'm ready to watch any kind of Big 12 action and not have to watch on the side Tulane versus Tulsa and see who wins that. You know, now we can watch Baylor versus Oklahoma State, and at least there'll be some fans in the stands, and it'll be an exciting game.
Much better. You know what else is much better, Mike? It's that time again.
It's back by popular demand. It's that time again. Time to open the Brian W. Peterson Sons of UCF mailbag.
It's just never going to not make me laugh, Mike. I don't know why. I don't know how to stop it. Every time it's going to make me laugh.
That's the way it's back.
It is. He's really excited that it's back, and that is for sure. Mike, before we get to this, you told me off the top of the show, again, bit of a different show, Trace and Leo on assignment, enjoying some much deserved time off, some time with friends and family tonight. So Leo and Trace not joining us, Mike. So a bit of a different feel, Sons of UCF podcast-ish feel. You've got some sort of top 5 list you want to share?
I do. I have a top 5. You know, it's a very hockey-themed episode here. Okay. We got all the Panther stuff going on. I have the top 5 UCF hockey names of all time.
Wait, so these are people who played other sports but sound like a hockey name, or they actually played hockey?
They played for UCF, but their names can be hockey names.
Okay.
Nothing to do with hockey.
All right.
Names that connote hockey.
I'm ready.
Number 5.
Yeah.
Stamboni Jackson.
I see what you did there. Okay. I'll give it to you.
That's number 5. They get better. Number 4. Josh Blue Lineham. The blue line.
Nah, not doing it for me.
Number 3, John Ice Plumley.
Okay. All right. I see what you did there. Makes some sense. Yep.
Number 2, Kevin Smythe. What? Kevin Smythe?
No.
Are you kidding me? Kevin Smythe?
No, can't get
Yeah, it is. All right, number one, there's no denying. Vic Penalty Box.
We're big Penn fans around here. I can't. Yeah, I mean, we're big Vic Penn fans around here. I can't deny Vic Penn on that. That's a great top 5 list. The fans are going crazy, except for Devin, who's not a big fan of Mike. All right, here's mailbag time. This is tough. I actually have to read these and watch the screen all at the same time, so who knows what's going to happen. At the real SOTG, are all these AAC trophies proof that UCF should change conferences?
Well, I mean, it's proven that we've come to the competition on every conference that we've been to and achieved success. We're winning conferences, and then we're ready for the next step. That's what it's proven, is that we're ready to make this next leap, to go to the Big 12. And if you've listened to me before, I've always said this Big 12 is just another step for UCF to eventually one day, when we get into the SEC or the Big 10, whatever the final destination is going to be. So we're going to come to the Big 12. We're going to win all the conferences here, and then we'll move on again.
Wow, UCF Mike projecting more. This is from at the JP Gilbert, our good friend. There was a story this week that UCF requested $176 million from tourist tax money. JP Gilbert wants to know, heady play, or should we be ashamed of ourselves?
You know me as a very selfish person. The only time I ever go to Orlando nowadays, I mean, if we're not going to the theme parks with my kids, is to go to UCF, to go to a UCF game. So if they can get this money to improve my experience on campus, I'm all for it.
When I realized it was just you and I on the show and there was a political question that had to be asked, I could not wait to fire this one. At Brian W. Peterson, since Adam asked and now Trace asked, does this mean I get to ask 2 questions?
Brian can ask as many questions as you want. Now, are we going to answer them? I don't know. Are we going to read them on air? I don't know, but you can keep asking them.
All right. At Brian W. Peterson, what would you choose, Mike, if you only had one option? Bring back the roller coaster basketball court or bring back gold jerseys?
This is not even close for me. That roller coaster basketball court was disgusting. I never want to see it ever again. Gold jerseys. I'm a fan of gold jerseys. We can bring back the gold. This is all Brian does on Twitter. Is all he does is discuss gold jerseys. I hope for their sake, for his sake, they bring it back. And you know what should happen? We should do it once a year. Once every year, homecoming, gold jerseys, stamp it, make it happen.
Yeah, he's really leaned into these gold jerseys, Mike. I think, look, if gold is done correctly, it won't look so bad, to your point, on a one-off. But the George O'Leary, like, levels of hydration gold was not what we needed, Mike. That was not a good look for us.
Yeah, I don't care. It's a throwback. Eventually, people are going to want those back. I mean, everything goes in cycles. You, as a kid, when you saw pictures of your parents in bell-bottom jeans and, you know, all that stuff, you're like, that stuff's never going to come back. You look like an idiot. The afros and all that stuff. Eventually, it all comes back. That gold jersey is going to be cool again. It might not be 2023, maybe in 2033, maybe in 2043. Eventually, when we bring back those Kevin Smythe jerseys in that year in gold, people are going to lose their minds and they're going to love it.
All right. At Brian W. Peterson, on his third question, I think this one might be for me, though, Mike. Top 5 seltzer flavors. I don't think you're prepared for a top 5 seltzer flavors. You want me to take this one for you?
Yeah, they're all disgusting, but go ahead.
I mean, they're not all disgusting. Like, top 5 seltzer flavors. I am prepared. Are you ready? But see, you can't really judge this list because you don't know any better. But number 5, just old school traditional White Claw black cherry. Number 4, little fun tip for you guys. Truly, they make a lemon and a lime flavor. Mix them together. You got lemon lime, twice the drink. Fun tip for everybody. Truly lemon lime. Number 4. Number 3, Mike, Truly Citrus Squeeze. It's lemon, lime, orange, and a little hint of grapefruit. Very refreshing. Very good idea. Truly Citrus Squeeze at number 3. One of my new faves, Mike. Are you familiar with Happy Dad? Happy Dad has a seltzer out now. It's got electrolytes in it, Mike, and the fruit punch flavor, great. They also have a new grape flavor that has Death Row Records on the can. I don't know why, but it was actually delicious as well. So Happy Dad, either the fruit punch or the grape is fine. And number 1, just plain old Bud Light Black Cherry, Mike. If you just need something quick, need a quick seltzer, Bud Light Black Cherry. You can't beat it. Those are the top 5 Sons of UCF seltzers, Mike. Any want to weigh in there?
Somebody brings that stuff to my house. It sits in that refrigerator until the next time we have people over at the house. I won't even drink them. I treat them like the natural lights that my brother-in-law brings over the house. I don't want them. I have no need for them. If you want to store them here until the next party, I guess that's cool.
All right, send them up my way if you want to, Mike. At Black and Gold Ed, who leaves UCF first? Cindy Ball Malone, Dana Boone, or Tiffany Roberts Sadehak?
I think we got to do whatever we have to do to keep Sydney Ball Malone here. Like we've just discussed with Elo, she is the best coach on campus, even though Dana Boone won Coach of the Year this year. In my opinion, Ball Malone is the best coach on campus in a sport that matters more. Yeah, let's be honest. Softball is on ESPN every day now. You're going to see all these games. When was the last time you saw a women's track and field event on TV? And you probably got to stream all that stuff. So softball is a big-time sport. Ball Malone's done an incredible job the last few years building this program. You got to do whatever you can to keep her here. If either of the other one to leave, that's the way it goes.
At the JC Morning, he asked this one just because Trace is not here. Should UCF ditch the Knights and just become the Citronauts, Mike?
No, I don't think it's going to happen. I know a lot of people want it to happen. That's a YP. It's just not going to happen. I don't even know if the only reason that it's a thing is because we make money off it. Let's face it. We don't have as big of a fan base as some of these blue blood schools like Oklahoma and Texas. We need to make money as much as we can. And our fan base is going to buy twice the amount of stuff if we have one Citronauts shirt and we have a Knight shirt. They're going to buy both. So we need to make money that way. But I don't think it's ever going to happen where we're going to completely rebrand our school.
All right, one last one that came in, Mike, at Hugh C. Heff. If you had $1,000 that you were willing to spend, happy to spend, easily could spend, and you could get any sort of UCF NIL deal, arrangement, situation, experience, perhaps, what's something you would spend $1,000 on, Mike?
I would spend $1,000. That's a lot of money. Whew, that could almost get you into the Taylor Swift concert.
Almost.
$1,000. What would I? Yeah.
We had Zach on the show, Mike. He kicked a field goal. He got a chance to kick a field goal. What experience would you want to buy for $1,000? Call a play. I mean, Gus takes a quarter off. You had to help design the jersey. I mean, what do you got 1,000 bones, bro?
Yeah, I'm not into the whole meeting guys, the famous. I don't get starstruck and stuff.
Like, just want to meet guys.
I'm all about the amenities, the experience. Give me the best possible seats with all inclusive food, drinks for a year. Is that fair? $1,000?
I'll take
it. Sure. That's not enough. That's not enough because my season tickets cost about $1,000 and I'm not getting that. So for a couple games at least, or how about a free airplane ride to travel with the team for a game? Something like that.
Well, it's not free because you paid $1,000, but yes, I see where you're
going
going
with that. Yeah. Trip or something.
First class.
Not to Stillwater, not to Lubbock. Make it Norman.
Where do you want to go?
Make it Norman. We'll go to the Oklahoma game. A flight, hotel, all accommodations included, drinks, a whole package.
Mike needs it all for $1,000. That makes a lot of sense, Mike. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I know it's a Wednesday. I know our schedules got jacked up. Trace and Leo again joined some time off. Mike able to join us. We're trying to work around a bunch of stuff. We have vacations coming up, so our schedule is probably gonna be a little weird over the next couple of weeks. So just follow us on social media, and we'll keep you posted. Big thanks to Kelly Ford and Eric Lopez who came on and made us smarter. We always appreciate that, Mike. And again, don't forget to check out this replay. If you listen to our podcast, you can also find that on our podcast feed as well. That's Mike. I'm Adam. We are the Sons UCF, and we will talk to everybody soon. Go Knights.
Let's go, Panthers.